afternoon, everyone. I always appreciate when you take time out of your busy day to come and visit with us on these webinars. I know you get solicited for many of them, and hopefully we'll give you enough information. You'll find this one worth your time. So we're going to talk about the new software release for CXE, the enterprise version of the CX product. We're going to talk about what's new in 8.2, particularly Software Update 2. Our software naming convention changed a while ago, and whereas we used to do point releases, 8.2, 8.21, etc., we now do software update packs, and just a little difference in the way they're handled. But what we want to make sure is that you know about all the features that are available on your system. So let's go ahead and take a look at kind of the history for the 8.2 release here. If you look at the basic release of 8.2, that happened last year about this time, and it was a major release for us. It added quite a few things, but the biggest piece was the new mobility client, the native mobile clients, and we'll talk about those a little just to make sure that you're familiar with what that feature set offers you. And then by February, we had another release, a Software Update 1, and that added a number of integration enhancements, and most particularly some things to the Microsoft integration to Lync, and we'll talk about that as well. And then about a month or so ago, we had Software Update 2, the latest release version for the 8.2 stream, and that had some pretty nice features in virtualization and scalability. That's primarily what we're going to focus on in this presentation, is what came out in that very latest release, although we will cover a couple of the other general 8.2 features as well, just because we want to make sure you know what's going on there. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's in 8.2 Software Update 2. And then we're going to go through each one of these in a little more detail here. But we have some new virtualization features, some capacity increases, which is nice, some kind of get in touch with the latest version of things for the Android product, and a couple of sample applications, and then some Australian voice prompts for any of you that might be listening from down under, and then a change in the security code reset lock. We'll talk about all of these. Let's start with virtualization. It's certainly a big thing on many people's agenda these days. The whole concept of being able to take one very powerful physical box and layer it so that it appears as it's actually multiple computers, virtual servers on that box, has been a powerful one for a number of years. Number of goals there. One is reduction of hardware costs. It's a little more green to have less power being drawn out to do that. A little easier to maintain, and you get a certain kind of high availability with that as well. So we started virtualizing the CX product quite a while ago, and we had virtualized almost everything. If you go back to the 8.11 release, we were able to run most of the parts of the product on virtual machines. But there was one part that we couldn't run, and there were some challenges there for us, and we worked actually very closely with VMware to put a change in it. And what we did for software release 8.2, software update 2, is we added the ability to virtualize that last component of the system server itself. The issue with the system server was it has a physical piece of hardware, which is a dongle for security, and it was very difficult to make that dongle always available so that you could certainly get the system running, but if there was a power failure when that system, the virtual machine, came back up, it wouldn't really reconnect to that dongle. So there's a new feature set that's part of the later version of VMware that allows us to do that. We actually can build a software connection of a certain kind, and now we can put a system server on a virtual part of a machine. So now everything, call servers, virtual servers, all our auxiliary servers. And the system server is supported in all the same configurations when it's virtual. In other words, you can have a single system server. You can have multiple system servers with our failover software. You can actually deploy a single system server on 2 physical hosts for high availability strictly within the VMware product. So it's a very solid implementation, and if anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to talk about those later. But it basically now puts us into the completely virtual arena. And we did this with VMware. In fact, we ran it through their testing process, and we are indeed certified as VMware ready. On the scalability side, we actually took a number of things into account, things that people have asked us for. And the first one was maximum system size. I mean, 384 ports really seems like a lot to most customers until you start talking about those customers that want to consolidate down and take maybe 8 sites and consolidate them into a single system instance. And we do that. We do it very, very well. but we were actually running up against that upper limit. So with Software Update 2, using a higher grade of server, you now can get 500 ports on the system. And that's a 30% increase in capacity, which is significant. And as important, or maybe more important, on individual call servers now, we increase the capacity as well. So now if you're running a call server without our speech applications on it, where you could get 96 ports before, now you can have 144 ports. And with speech, we actually doubled the capacity. We went from 48 ports to 96 ports. So this allows us to deploy a system on less servers, just to be more flexible in terms of matching various customer architectures. Once again, as you look at the consolidation of systems, this is the area we spend a lot of time with, both with features and architecture, looking at this area. Because most customers have figured out if they have 5 or 6 locations, they've now consolidated and centralized their data infrastructure, and it costs less for them to maintain it. There's less physical servers, less training involved. There's a lot of obvious benefits, long-term benefits. They now want to consolidate their telephony infrastructure, and part of that, of course, is our platform. So with that increased capacity, we now can fit into more of these solutions and offer more flexibility in matching whatever the customer's architecture is. So as we talk about deploying UC, not just a legacy voicemail, but some of these other applications like unified messaging and mobile access to functionality, we'd be interested in knowing a little bit about your strategy.
Yes, we would. Okay, so this is just please select one answer. What's your UC deployment strategy? Is it private cloud? Is it a hybrid with a mix of on-premise and cloud deployment? Is it planned for full UC to cloud, or are you still evaluating? We'll just wait a few seconds and get everyone. Just a couple more seconds here. Okay, it looks like most people have voted. And Neil, the results are about 20% private cloud, 22% are hybrid, just 2% planned for a full UC to cloud, and then 57% are still evaluating.
Yeah, it's that evaluating category is one I think a lot of people are in. There's so much going on in the whole cloud concept right now that I think it's difficult to plan any really long-term strategy, and certainly moving anything to the cloud is kind of a long-term strategy. So it's interesting, you know, as you talk with us going forward, we really watch this cloud technology, and we have certainly the private cloud. In other words, you deploying your solutions maybe consolidated on your own data network. That's a market we've been in for a long time. The hybrid cloud, perhaps you're going to move your email system to the cloud, and you still need your UC functionality to connect, and we're right on top of that. We can deploy our technology if you have Gmail or Office 365 or anything that uses those standards. And then the whole cloud piece, while the CXE system doesn't itself necessarily lend itself to being put in the cloud, we have a whole other product line that does, the CXC, or the cloud version. So as you look at your strategy for cloud, and particularly if you're one of our customers already, it's probably worth engaging us to have a conversation as you kind of figure out what you want to do in this area. So we appreciate this information. So UCConnect is our custom development environment that we sell on the platform. So if you have a CX system, you actually can not only run all the wonderful apps that we've built, but you can come up with some of your own. And it's interesting that no matter how many apps and solutions we put on the product, we are always involved in a conversation where a customer has something truly unique. And it's unique enough where we're probably not going to put it in the product because not everyone would use it. But a long time ago, we figured out it was a good idea for us to go ahead and put the tools into place so that either ourselves or the customer themselves could create these applications. And so we started building some. We have some packaged apps like Notify Express, and we certainly do a lot of custom development work, and you can get the case studies on those to give you an idea of the kind of things we can do. But as of Software Update 2, when you buy the UCConnect programming environment, you also get 2 free apps. And these aren't test apps. We've always had test apps just to make sure the installation worked. But these are actually pretty usable apps. And the first one is Dynamic Call Routing. And this lets you create a database that tells the system how to route calls based on caller ID or based on information that's entered by the caller. So you can prompt the caller to enter a zip code or an account number, and then you can route the calls that come into the system based on a match to that information in your database. So the dynamic call routing app's already seen quite a bit of use. And then the other free application is system information. You can program this so that your administrator or your technicians can call in, and when they're answered, they'll be given back information about the system. What number am I calling from? Is this associated with a mailbox? What languages do I have on the system? All this type of information that you certainly can get from our product in other ways is now packaged up and delivered in a very easy format over the telephone. So if you buy UCConnect, you get both of those applications for free. And we're going to continue building applications like this. And when we deliver them to you, we also give you the source code. And why that's really valuable is maybe they're not quite doing what you want, but they're close, and you now can take those and modify them. Or maybe you're looking at building your own applications, and to be able to look at some source code for a typical, here's how a call comes in and gets answered, here's how you read back something from a database. Having those examples for code we think is going to be pretty valuable long term. So as you look at what we're doing in the sort of business process thing, if you look at what we're creating ourselves, because we have a custom development group here, or what some of our customers are building, that information, we really feel it's essential we share that. Because as people look at this and they go, oh, well, I have an application, but I don't know whether you're the right tools to be using, we now have a set of brochures, and these brochures talk about existing applications and what's being done. And they talk about the high level, the general concept, and then they also go ahead and go into a little more detail on what's there. So you can go out to our website and get a hold of this information, and maybe that'll give you an idea of how you could solve some specific UC problems on your site using kind of the functionality you already have inherent in your CX system. It's always our goal to leverage as much as we can, not only our own product, but your other solutions. So what kind of applications have you deployed, or do you plan to deploy that are running on our platform, would be the next poll question.
Okay, again, please just select one. Which AVST applications have you currently implemented or plan to deploy in the near future? Voicemail, unified messaging, is it personal assistant and or AVST mobile client, is it speech automated attendant? Have you done any of our UCConnect or Notify Express? And we have a good amount that have voted. I'll just wait a few more seconds to get a few more votes in. Okay, great. It looks like most everyone's voted. Thank you for your feedback. And the results for this poll, Neil, are 23% are voicemail, 50% have unified messaging, 16% have personal assistant, 9% have speech automated attendant, and just 2% have UCConnect or Notify Express.
Very good, and that's not only is that great information for us, but it's kind of what we would expect in terms of UCConnect in particular is one of our new pushes. Although we've had it on the product, we're much more aggressive in talking about it now than we used to be, and the rest of those categories make pretty good sense. If you look at the curve for what is getting deployed in UC, that answer set follows pretty much right along that. But it is good to see that everybody's taking more advantage of the platform than just using it as a voicemail. So if we look at 8.2 overall, what we did, sort of in categories. Certainly on the mobile side, we added the mobile clients, and we're going to look at those in a second. And in terms of the cloud or the centralization of systems, we spent a lot of time in the entire stream of 8.2 doing the scalability and the gateways and things that the larger customers have been asking us for. And then in that business process piece, we took some of our current applications and like the security code reset, so your users can reset their security code without bothering the help desk, and then the UCConnect pieces. And what you'll see here is there's really not a lot of focus on voicemail and generic call processing anymore. Not that those features aren't valuable and everyone uses them, but those features haven't changed much. And once again, this product's been under development for 30 years. We've pretty much got those features down. So now we tend to look at some of the UC areas in terms of our focus. What that means is, we want to hear from you in terms of those kind of things as well. As our customers, we love the feedback to tell us what you think we could do in our product to make it even more useful for you. Certainly the mobile clients were the big thing with 8.2. Concept here is simple. Like it or not, all your employees are carrying around mobile devices, smart mobile devices now, not just phones. There's some question about control over those devices. Fortunately, that's not our issue. That's something you'll deal with. But because they have those devices, let's see if we can't leverage them. And the best way to leverage a device is to put in a client application on it that works like all the other applications to break down that learning curve. We've had web applications for mobile devices for a long time, but the native client piece is much, much better, much easier to use. And we're going to kind of look through what we offer on these client devices just really quickly here. That's not the focus of this webinar, but it's nice to know that that functionality is out there. One of the great things is, you know, these mobile devices, they're all touch screens. They all work very easily, very quickly. The kind of things you can do if you have to go through 2 or 3 screens with one of these with a couple of flips of your fingers means the productivity possibilities are very high, both on the Android and the iPhone. And those are the two we focused on right now. We follow the market. There possibility we'll release some others, but for right now, they're Android phones and iPhone that we focus on in terms of delivering this functionality. And we start with giving the users a way to separate their work and personal communications. In a lot of cases, the bring your own device movement have put people in a place where they're using their personal phone for some of their business communications, and it's very difficult to separate that out. So we give you tools to help you do that, and we'll show you a couple of those tools as we look through this feature set. Single number reach is another part that makes the use of these devices very easy. We've for a long time had the kind of approach that says, I'm not at one phone number anymore. I'm not even at only 2 phone numbers. I might be any number of places. I might be in the conference room using my Link client for my calls. I'm in my car using one of my mobile phones. I might be in a hotel, and I have a different phone number. I might be at my desk. I might be at a second office. With all these phone numbers, it's very difficult for you to tell customers or coworkers, if you need to find me, call this number first, and if I don't answer, call this number. So the concept of find me, follow me, or single number reach says you give out a single number to everyone, and then you build the rules that control how your calls get to you. And that control is two-sided. The first real advantage is now your users can get to you much more quickly, much more efficiently, and you can just return much better customer service. And the second is you can control those calls. So for those times when you don't want people calling you on your mobile, they don't have your mobile number, they just have your main number. So that capability makes it much easier. So the ability to have those kind of features, that's a key part of what the client offers. And as you look at making phone calls from the client, you certainly can pick up your mobile phone and just call, right, and call in and make a phone on it. The problem there is if you're using your personal phone, you now have that scenario where some of your calls are personal and some are business. So in this case, what we do is we have you make your calls that are business using our native mobile app, which actually routes them through the CX system and not only gives you a record, but the outgoing call number that's displayed to your customers isn't your mobile number, it's your business number. And so once again, that helps you control, calls coming into your mobile, keeping your bill under control as well. So mobile number protection is one of those facets of the client that isn't real obvious until people start looking at how they can use it. Probably the most unique piece that we offer is visual call screening for inbound calls. Most of us sit in meetings for a part of our day, and when we're in meetings, we have our mobile device sitting out on the table, and we're doing kind of a triage with email. Yes, we're paying attention in the meeting, more or less, but we also might have these important emails that come in. So when an email comes in, we're going to look down and say, okay, no, I can let that one go. And then when that really important one comes in, I can step out in the hall or even maybe send a quick reply. The problem on the phone call side is you really can't do that same thing. You can't afford to answer all the calls coming into your mobile phone and find out what it is and then say, oh, no, I'll call you later, because you've already disrupted the meeting. So with our mobile client, you can actually screen your incoming calls through the data channel. So the screen shows I'm sitting in my meeting, I have a call come in, I get a little pop-up on my screen and says, who's it from? Now, if it's from somebody within your system or somebody in your contacts, we'll do a number match and we'll actually show the name of the caller. And now you can make decisions based on that call. I want to take that call. Do I want to send them a voicemail? I can even send them an acknowledgement message. So if I hit acknowledge, I can record something. Yeah, John, listen, I'll call you as soon as I get out of this meeting. And I can go back to my meeting, and I've set a callback expectation to my customer. We've done this for years with our incoming speech interface, where if I'm in my car and I answer a call, I'll actually have the ability to say acknowledge. And now we do the same thing silently through the data channel. So for people in meetings, this has turned out to be probably the most important, or maybe the most useful piece of the mobile application. And placing outbound calls, like I say, it's nice to place them through our system. You get some advantages there, financially, record keeping. You protect the number of your mobile phone. And you can make them by dialing them. You can make them from your contacts, from your system directory. We have message logs and call logs that all allow us to do direct callbacks. So placing outbound calls, another key piece of the client. And then the last thing we put in here is, the thing about mobile people is they're away from so many of their other tools that controlling their features isn't as easy. Yes, we have a great telephone interface, both a speech and DTMF interface, where you can call in and change the settings in your mailbox. But nothing is as easy as doing it in a graphical interface. So what we have on the native mobile client is the ability to go in and change your settings, record your greeting, change your just all the kind of things that you might want to do, particularly while you're mobile. The biggest one is to change your Find Me, Follow Me. I can head down the hall to walk into a customer meeting, open my mobile client, hit a button, and now I've sent all my calls to voicemail if I want. And then when I walk out, I can hit a button and I've sent them all to my mobile client. And then as I walk back into my office, I go in and hit a button, and now they're ringing at my desk again. So not only is Find Me, Follow Me very flexible, but we give you a wide set of tools to make it very easy to use. We've discovered over the years the best feature in the world won't get used if it's complex for the user to maintain it and change it. So the mobile client, a great tool for maintaining your mailbox settings. And of course, we wouldn't be who we are if we didn't also do voicemail. Now, a lot of people store their voicemail. They use unified messaging. They store it in their email inbox, in which case they get it in their email client, and that's fine. But there's an equal number of people that don't want to put their messages into their email client, but still would like to access them from their mobile phone. So that's one of the other advantages of the mobile client. Those messages stored on the CX server are now visible, and the user can play them, can forward them off to other users, can delete them, all the same things you can do over the normal interfaces. One of the advantages to the way we do this compared to our competition is we don't download all the messages to the phone. Memory footprint on a phone, storage footprint is very important, and a well-behaved app doesn't really do that kind of thing. It doesn't take a lot of files and store them on the phone. So what we do is bring up a list, the user clicks play, and we stream that message to them real time. No real noticeable delay, and it's just a much better behaved application than some of the other ways people do it. One of the things we decided right out of the gate was to make all of the applications equal in every place we could. There's actually a few small things that are different between the Android and iPhone app having to do with the platform capabilities, but all of the general features match up. Now they look different. They have a look and a feel that matches the device, so the menus are laid out differently, but what they do is match the technology that that phone platform uses so that the user is comfortable. Now, if you don't have an Android and you don't have an iPhone, we still have a lot of ways to support mobile users. We have a web client, a mobile web client for changing the mailbox settings. You can, if you're using your email on that phone and you're having your messages pushed through email, you'll still get access to your voicemail as well. So it isn't that we don't do anything for those other ones, but I have to say it's, the market tends to be focused on Android and iPhones out there now, so that is where we do the lion's share of our work. For the user, the easiest thing, like I said, the best thing to do is make it easy for the user. So if you have a user and you've enabled them for this application and it's something that you have to do as an administrator, they go up to the market. They search on our name and they bring their app and download it, and a little configuration screen pops up and asks for the address of their server and their mailbox number and a few things like that. And excuse me, my computer's going crazy here. So it's very, very easy to deploy this, and that's an important feature. And of course, this also takes advantage of the automatic update. Both of these platforms update the application. So as we do changes, we post them on the system, and they get updated next time the user updates anything on their phone. So a very easy way to deploy it, very low on the maintenance side from your point of view, and we think that's equally important. And then kind of one of the last things we'll look at in terms of functionality that we added in 8.2 is our link gateway. A lot of interest in Link out there with a lot of customers. A lot of confusion over what it is and how people are going to use it, and what percentage are going to use it for telephony and what are just going to use it for instant messaging. But there's some things that we can do in that Link world that I think most customers who are going to deploy Link would find pretty handy. So we can serve as a gateway. Now, there's a lot of ways to put a gateway on Link to enable outgoing calls and incoming calls. So you can use probably your PBX supports a SIP trunk that you could use for the gateway. You could buy a separate physical hardware gateway. And with all those other gateways, you get two features: incoming calls or outgoing calls. Incoming calls always will ring on your Link soft phone. Now, you can have them go through your PBX and ring on your soft phone and your desk phone. They can be twinned, but they're always going to ring there. And you can make outgoing calls, and the outgoing calls go out through the gateway or out through the PBX. So we certainly start by giving you that functionality. If you have a Link system and a CX system, you can use us as a bridge into your PBX and out onto the public switch network. Now, one of the things that's different in our approach is we don't care what your PBX is. We don't care how old the software is. It doesn't have to be SIP capable. Anything we integrate to, and as we'll see a little later on, is pretty much everything on the market right now. We can deliver these high-end features. So you don't have to rip and replace your telephony infrastructure to get these kind of communications enhancements. So that's nice. We do the same thing in a better way. But beyond that, one of the things we know about is flexibility. Users move around. There's almost no solution that works for them all the time. Sometimes not even during the same day will the same kind of communication solutions effectively serve them. So the intelligent part of the gateway is because we can allow a user to route those calls. So the Link soft phone becomes another device associated with the user's mailbox, and it's a programmable device. And that means I can build up rules. And I can say, when I'm at my desk, send my calls to my desk phone. When I get ready to go into a meeting, I will enable something that says, send them to my Link client so I can answer them from there. When I go into the hotel and check in and get on the network, I can go ahead and say, change availability to my list called that hotel, and now I'm getting my phones on my Link client when I'm in my hotel, free of charge, which is kind of nice. So the whole concept about our intelligent gateway is it isn't just a gateway like everyone else's. It's a gateway, once again, under the user's control. And users being what they are, they want to change things as they move throughout their business day. Their circumstances change, and their tools should let their communications change as well. And that's the thing we provide that's unique. So we watch this Link market very closely, so we have some questions.
Okay, this is the last poll. And we're curious if you're using Link for your voice communications. So please, again, select 1. Yes, you have Link, but you're not using it for voice, or you would like to use it for voice with your existing PBX, or no, you're not using Link. So we'll go ahead and wait for everyone to vote. And thanks again for all of your feedback as well. Okay, it looks like almost everyone has voted, so we'll go ahead and close this out. And so the results for this are 10% have Link, but with no plans to use it for voice communications. 8% have it and would like to use it for voice. And then 82% do not have Link at this time.
All right. Well, the whole concept of kind of Link merging into your voice infrastructure, and it's very much like that cloud concept. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to understand how you're going to do that. So thank you for that information. And once again, as you start looking at Link, make sure you give us a call, and we can talk about the kind of things we can do. And we have more integration coming up to Link, by the way, in our next release of software. So we talked about integrations. One of the great things about the way we deploy things is we try and make it work in your existing environment. We're really happy if you've managed to consolidate your telephony environment and go to a voice over IP structure. We have great SIP connections for that. But all of the features we have work equally as well with your old legacy PBX, which means you can deploy those solutions today, and as you migrate to your legacy PBX, you don't lose anything. So we're a very safe starting point for a unified communications implementation. A couple of other things that are in the 8.2, I referenced this one a little earlier. Users will forget their password. It's a just a rule, and if if you're in the help desk side of it at all, you know that's true. So what we've done is we've put a very highly secure method of using our web phone manager client that we talked about earlier to let a user reset their own password. And it's secure. It requires them having credential information that they can enter, and then we send them back a link to an email address that you control as the administrator to let them reset their password. So that's one of the things you can look at doing that makes your job easier, and it's very easy to deploy. And then the last list of things, and this isn't even a comprehensive list. Every software update has literally hundreds of little things. Some are fixes, some are little enhancements that we don't really bother, making a big deal of. We now support Chrome with our web phone manager. There was a version change there. We had to do a little work to bring that back up. If you're a user of our speech interface, you can turn that on or off. So if you're headed into an environment you know is going to be noisy, you can go into Web Phone Manager and say, yeah, I want to use regular DTMF for now. We have full support for Windows Server with the newer MyTie toolkit and the newer Aculab cards. Windows 2008 R2 drove everything to 64-bit drivers, and it took some of our partners that we deal with a while to get those drivers out. So finally, with SU2, we are now everything we do fully compatible with the R2 version. MyTie has a failover scenario they have, and we now support that. And we have a nice tool as we connect to Microsoft Exchange 2010. We have a nice enhanced tool to make that easier for the technicians installing the system. So between 8.2 and Service Update 1, Software Update 1, Software Update 2, a lot of new functionality, a lot of improved functionality. And as we've seen, the bulk of it focuses towards unified communications. So hopefully we have some questions. Maybe?
Sorry about that. I had to unmute myself.
Oh, I snuck up on you. Sorry.
Yeah, you did. Okay, we do have questions. Let me just pull them up here. Okay, the first question is, what Dialogic boards are you using for the VMware implementation, and how can I get more information about this?
Well, that's an easy one to answer, but it's not an answer people are going to like. We can't use any Dialogic boards in our system for VMware because VMware does not let you dedicate, even though we've managed to create a path out to that dongle, Dialogic doesn't let you dedicate hardware resources to an individual VMware host, which means to fully implement virtualization, you have to be on an IP integration that doesn't require cards.
Okay.
So if you have an older integration, you have a couple of choices. One, we can virtualize the system server and all the rest and leave the call servers dedicated, or we can use a Dialogic Media Gateway, which will connect to your older legacy PBX and convert that integration into SIP. So you still have hardware, but now it's external to the call server, so we can virtualize the call server. And you could always call and get in touch with sales engineering, and they can take you through that in great detail.
Okay. Next question. Is this a SIP client, and can we receive calls over Wi-Fi?
Yeah, so when we looked at doing this, we spent a lot of time looking at whether or not we wanted to support Wi-Fi calls. And the consensus was there's a lot of times when that would be good to do, but some of those times when it's good to do, you have a lot of other choices. So when you're in your own building, etc. When you're external, the Wi-Fi signal is still marginal in so many cases. So today, the phone calls are not Wi-Fi. The data communication will go over Wi-Fi, but all the physical conversations from our client will go over the actual telephony side of the mobile device. Down the road, as support gets better for the bandwidth, we'll be looking at adding as an option something. But today, we don't support it as a Wi-Fi softphone.
Okay. This one we kind of went over during the presentation, but just to clarify what phones we do support and which ones we do not. What about the Windows Phone 8 support?
So Windows Phone 8 is the first one we might be looking at to add to our list. But since it's not really out, and since the penetration numbers, like any company, what drives us is what drives you. So if you decide, Windows 8 is a great phone, let's go buy a lot of them, and those numbers come out in the surveys, then we say, okay, let's spend some of our research dollars and our programming money to build that. We have the toolkits to do that. We know how to do that. But right now, it's not an active project for Windows 8, just like it's not an active project for BlackBerry, because we have to wait and see how this shifts. And we suspect it's going to shift. Both BlackBerry and Windows 8 will come out before the end of the year for Windows 8 and hopefully in the first quarter for BlackBerry. And if we see them emerge as strong players in the corporate market, then we will definitely get right on to doing that. That being said, we have to wait and see. Windows phones have not done well traditionally before Windows 8 in the corporate market. Now, Windows 8 may be positioned to change that, but we're going to have to see that first before we drive really hard to build that app on our platform.
Okay, great. Next question is about our Intelligent Gateway for Link. The Intelligent Gateway would replace, they're wondering if it will replace audio codes, an audio codes gateway.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing where if you had an audio codes gateway today, and that audio codes gateway could be to the outside, to public network resources or to your PBX. If you had a CX in place, yes, you could get rid of that and use us as the gateway. The big advantage, once again, being the intelligent routing of those calls. If you don't want to route the calls, if you're happy with the way they go, well, then whether you use us or audio codes doesn't make much difference. But that is the architecture where we would step in place of the audio codes gateway.
Okay, next question on the same subject. Using Link as a gateway, can you respond to how is caller ID outbound handled with a Link user making an outbound call?
So Link is just like when we make it from our mobile phone. What gets sent out is your call express or your CX number. So we protect the identity of the caller because most people don't want people calling directly back in on their DIDs to Link any more than they want them to call in directly. So in between, since CX sits in between, it masks the user's actual ID and has the call come back in as the number of the company. And that way your next call comes into our intelligent gateway, and we can route it to Link or not, depending on how you've decided to do it.
Okay, and this one's a little bit vague, but do we offer Office 365 support?
Yes. In terms of today, if you had Office 365, we can do full unified messaging, where you can place your messages out in the store, in the cloud. You can get to them over the phone. You can see the voice messages in the client. The one thing that isn't in the released version is message waiting control. It works. I actually have it in my lab, but the testing and the documentation will be packaged with 8.5 that comes out in January, but everything works today. Office 365 is actually an implementation of Exchange 2010, uses the same web services interface that we've used for 2010 for a year and a half now. So almost full functionality today, total functionality with the message waiting and the calendar and everything come first quarter of next year.
Okay. Another question, just where to get information. Where can I get more information and technical details on the UC integration with Office 365?
Best thing to do probably is call one of our sales engineers, or if you're a customer, call your dealer, and they'll put you in touch with one of us, and we can go through it and talk about today how it works and how you implement it, and then we can just kind of reconfirm with what's coming in the next release as well.
Okay. And another question on where to get information. Where can I get information to open our firewall for the Android app that connects to our AVST server?
So you probably don't have to do anything. The communications out tend to be HTTPS, secure HTTP, which most people, if you have any web app running, probably has that opened already. There are certain of our applications that require dedicated ports, but because of what's going on, going out to the mobile phones has to be secure, then we picked a standard protocol that probably everybody already has the ports open for HTTPS. And if you're having trouble with that, then it's something you can have your vendor call our tech support people and they can talk you through. But I know I have an implementation in my lab here that I just stood up so that I can do tests and things like that, and I didn't have to do anything with our firewall because obviously we have HTTPS open already.
Okay. Next question. How many ports does a mobile app take when a call is made or received?
Oh, sneaky people are thinking about architecture. 2. And the way this works is I'm on my phone and I decide to call Emily. So I look her up in the directory, I hit call. The mobile phone sends a data packet to the CX server. CX server makes sure I'm allowed to call whatever number is associated with Emily, calls me back on a regular voice connection, and calls Emily on that connection and bridges us together. So it's going to be using 2 ports on the CX system. And there's a couple of reasons we do this. The biggest one is when I go to call Emily, I might pick her out of a list. I might even pick her out of a list and click to call her mobile number. But instead, since Emily's on my system, it's going to look at her Find Me, Follow Me rules, because we let our users control their own environment. So she might know that it can't ring her desk phone that I selected because she's away, and the system automatically makes those choices. So we loop all the calls through the system and hold that connection in place.
Okay, perfect. You spoke about automatic updates for the smartphone apps. Have you implemented any automatic updates for the CX server?
Yes. CX server has a set of programs like Software Update 2. You could go ahead and you could run our application on it. Your technician would do it. It's called Live Update. And you go to a CX machine that's got CX running, you double-click Live Update, and it says 1 moment, and it takes the registered information on that server, sends it out to our server. We make sure that you're currently allowed to get, let's say, the latest update, and then it'll go ahead and download it and walk you through the process. Now, some of those updates require a reset of the system, so this is not something for an administrator to just do casually. But yes, we have a live update program that pushes these software releases out.
Perfect. Okay, next question, and there's about 5 more.
No problem.
Just so you know.
Yep.
Is there any voicemail to text native to AVST, or is this only supported through the Ditech partnership?
So right now today it's all through the Ditech partnership, and the reason is the horsepower it takes to do that kind of transcription is very, very large. So the odds of us having something in the next 5 years that runs native on the CX server is pretty low. That being said, there's a couple of vendors we're dealing with right now that will give us the opportunity to have their server implemented as part of our server set on the customer premise to do it. So while another server will be required for security purposes, it can all happen within your firewall. So look forward to us talking about that in the next probably 90 days in terms of what our directions are for that.
Okay. Next question is a licensing question. Is the Android and Apple client free with or without or availability licenses?
So Personal Assistant is the license that turns on the Find Me, Follow Me, the mobile client, the connection to contacts, all of that kind of high-level unified communications. That's our license, the Personal Assistant license. If you also want to get email messages in the client, so if you're not storing your email in Exchange, but you're storing them on CX, then you would also, for that user, need a license. There's no cost for the app itself. You can go out and download it, but it's not going to run until that user has been enabled, and they must have a Personal Assistant license to enable it.
Okay, great. Next question. Does your Link solution include remote call control to the PBX?
No. That's something we're looking at doing, but today it's simply a bridge where the call comes in from the PBX to us, and we will send it based on, once again, the user's rules somewhere, and that one of those places can be the Link client.
Okay. Next question. Does CX support the VMware FT cluster?
It hasn't been tested at this time. I have at least one customer who's told us it works, but for right now, no, it's not officially supported.
Okay. And then another question, this is the last one. What's the benefit of the AVST application when other PBX vendors have their own applications?
Well, that's kind of vague in terms of.
Yeah.
Let me give you a. I'm gonna. I don't want to say pick on somebody, but let me give you a kind of a sample environment and talk about how we're different really quickly, and we can have more in-depth discussions. If you look at our solution set, a lot of it would be duplicated. Let's say you're in an Avaya environment, and you put Aura messaging in, and you want a mobile client, so you put 1X server in, and you want the speech interface that we offer, so you put 1X speech in, and you want a link gateway, so you put the ACE server in. So now you've sort of duplicated the functionality we have. Not quite, actually. We actually have, even with all that being deployed, we still have a little more functionality in those areas. But the downside is you just put 4 or 5 extra servers in, and not only do those have physical implications for cost, but they aren't very well integrated, and the administrators would need to have 4 or 5 more admin clients to use. And the worst thing is the users would have 3 or 4 different admin clients to get that functionality. CX, small 4-port system, 1 physical server, everything we've talked about working, 1 admin client for the users gives you all the functionality that you need 5 or 6 servers in the Avaya world. So up on the whiteboard, sounds like it's the same thing. The fact that so many customers have bought and kludged together external apps to have the feature set, they aren't very easy to deploy or use. So if you're looking at another environment, you should probably give us a chance to talk to you about why ours is different, not just in the fact that we can show you what we offer, but long term our costs are going to be so much lower because of the way it gets deployed.
Great. Okay, and that looks like it's all the questions that we have. Again, everyone, thank you so much for all of your involvement in the webinar and for your input and everything. We really appreciate that, and we take it to heart and make changes for the future. We look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. And Neil, did you have anything else to add before we close up?
Just, like to echo what you said. Thank you for taking the time. Hopefully you find these helpful, and you'll let us know if there are things we're not doing that you'd like to see us do. We really love to hear from our customers.